Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast.
Hello, welcome to Musical Talk. My name is Nick Hutson. I'm sitting across from Robert Gordon. Hello, Robert. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you for coming back on Musical Talk. It's been a long time.
Yes.
No here. Long time no here.
It has been. I haven't seen that many shows for a year or so.
Well, we're going to talk about a show we both seen in a bit. But at first, I want to hear... to pick your brains about a writing couple that you're very passionate about, aren't you?
Yes, I've just completed a book on Kander and Ebb. John Kander and Fred Ebb. No, never heard of them. And the book comes out in August, so I'm very excited about that. And this has been a kind of life's work for me because I've been watching Kander and Ebb. It's more 40 years ago and more. I started with Cabaret, and I have followed their career ever since.
And this isn't a book about kind of delving into the musical analysis of their songs. It's about their...
It's called The Theatre of Kander and Ebb. So it's only the second critical book ever written about Kander and Ebb. The first is by a musicologist, so it tends to emphasize music. And I think the author of the first book got much more access to John Kander than to Fred Ebb. I've been in the New York Public Library, Billy Rose Theatre Collection, looking at the Fred Ebb papers. So I've been able to reconstruct a number of things about early productions. I've also been able to see shows in the Theatre Arts Video Library in New York Public Library. And I think I can claim to be probably the only scholar who has ever seen their musical version of The Skin of Our Teeth, All About Us, with Eartha Kitt in Connecticut. So, I've got things to say about that. I think that Kander and Ebb were real originals. I think that what I discovered about them was that their oeuvre, their corpus of work, is incredibly consistent in many ways, that most of the shows are self-reflexive. In fact, almost all the shows are self-reflexive in that they look at theatre through the form of theatre, or they use an old entertainment form to do something more modern, to do something more startling.
Twist it on its head in a way.
Exactly, more shocking. And so I think that they are remarkably consistent no matter what book writer they're working with. You seem to get the same vision from a Kander and Ebb show. And one of the things that's interesting is this starts with Cabaret. The one show that I think had a strong influence, almost co-authored by the director, was Cabaret, which was both produced and directed by Harold Prince. And that's the one show where I think the dramaturgical idea was introduced by Harold Prince. But once they'd seen that, they seemed to be able to go on exploiting it in a very creative way.
Because they worked with Hal Prince before, didn't they, when he was a producer?
Yes, they worked with Hal Prince on Flora the Red Menace, Liza Minnelli's debut on Broadway. And the show was a flop, although she won a Tony. And I think the reason the show was a flop, they all felt, was because George Abbott was the director. And George Abbott was too old-fashioned and a bit too old at that point to direct that show. And he didn't direct it in a way which would have brought out the darker side of the material, which was set in the Depression. And Prince saw that. And the day after the show closed, Hal Prince phoned Kander and Ebb and said, right, now we're going to start to work on our next show. And the next show was Cabaret.
Do you think Hal Prince was, by being in the rehearsals, he was able to kind of really gauge how they worked and kind of worked out, like, had he not been in the rehearsals, their careers could have been completely different?
Yes, I think if they'd never met Hal Prince, they would not have so easily found their proper identity as a songwriting team and as a musical theatre creation team. I think possibly they would have discovered what they did best, but it would have taken longer.
I remember seeing a musical they did called The Scottsboro Boys at the Garrick Theatre, and it really hits you hard, that show, doesn't it?
Yes.
And that's Susan Stroman, of course. And that, again, uses a format of a show within a show, with the minstrel show. Again, another shocking piece of art. But they take... The best way I can describe Kander and Ebb is they're the ones that do dark with light, don't they? They take a dark subject and they turn it on its head to be flippant or commenting on it within society. For example, a tap dance song about the electric chair.
Yes. I mean, the Scottsboro Boys is possibly their finest, most coherent work overall, and it's a shocking show, which succeeded better in London, where there was more distance. The audience were more distant. I think in America, the white audience, particularly, largely white audience on Broadway, felt they were being accused of the kind of racism that had led to the unfair trial of the real Scottsboro Boys. And how dare Kander and Ebb do the Scottsboro Boys trials in the form of a minstrel show, in itself a kind of racist format. And I think that was what was so shocking. But the thing is that Kander has continued to revive their shows, and he's continued to produce. After Ebb died in 2004, Kander continued to produce...
Has it been 21
Yes.
years since his death?
Yes. I mean, Ebb died in 2004. Kander is still alive at about 98. But the thing is that Kander has gone on making sure that every show reaches Broadway.
How lucky for him.
Yeah, because they had a back catalogue of material.
Well, they went into Cabaret with 60 songs or something, didn't they?
Yes.
Ridiculous.
Huge number. Yes, huge number. Anyway, so it was right up until the current version, it's 2023, of New York, New York, which was written by with some extra lyrics by Lin-Manuel Miranda. Even that's a Kander and Ebb work. They've taken music from some of the earlier Kander and Ebb shows, particularly New York, New York, the movie, and they've used it to write the new stage musical. Unfortunately, that was a flop.
Yeah. Did you get to speak to John Kander at all during
I've never done so. I've spoken to his secretary, but I didn't want to hound him, to be honest, because I thought by the time I was ready to speak to him, he was well into his late 90s, and it may have been too much. I just felt I didn't want
Plus,
to.
you want to get, how many times does he need to tell his stories? You kind of...
Yes, there's so much material there.
I mean, I remember we on the podcast, I'm lucky enough to be speaking of someone whose works are going to be revived forever and ever. I was emailing thy Lord Stephen Sondheim, and I said, would you like to come on the podcast? And he said, yeah, but I've got nothing else I need to say. So that these people are kind of, they're happy to talk if they have something to promote, a bit like you, Robert.
Yes. Well, I think that's true. I think that with Kander, he said he's given so many interviews, and there are so many recordings of Kander and Ebb talking about their work and singing their work, because in fact they often played, Kander would play and Ebb loved to perform, and Ebb sang.
Because wasn't John a rehearsal? He did West Side Story and things like that.
He had been a rehearsal pianist for West Side Story, and he wrote the dance. He was the dance music arranger for Gypsy.
Oh wow!
So he had a strong sound. I mean,
was Hal Prince linked with those as well? Is that how they kind of got to know each
Hal
other?
Prince was one of the producers of West Side Story. Kander, not Ebb, but Kander was a very good friend of Sondheim's.
So talk about fate, kind of putting all these people together in one room.
Well, they were part of the Golden Age. I mean, they come at the end of the Golden Age, and
They formed a new age as well.
Exactly. And in a sense, what they do is they revive the Golden Age form with new and darker material.
I want to talk about Curtains because that's a show that you and I have seen together, albeit we saw a rather wonderful drama. It wasn't a drama school production, was it? It was the UK tour we went to see.
The UK tour, yes.
I have also seen a drama school production.
As have I, yes.
And it doesn't matter. You could get monkeys to perform that show and it would still be one of the most fun evenings you could ever have, I think.
It's funny, it's witty, it's a show within a show, it's about putting on a show, it's a detective story. It's got almost all the elements that make a show gripping and fun at the same time.
But it's also, if you know the history of it, it's very touching because Fred died halfway through, he wasn't murdered, but he died halfway through the creation of the piece. So John had to step in and do lyrics.
Yes.
Had he done lyrics for anything else before? Or do you think it was just years of osmosis through...
They worked in the same room, and I think for years of absorbing what Fred Ebb did, he was able to produce lyrics. I mean, the lyrics are more moving than witty. He doesn't try to mimic...
But he's writing... They say write what you know, and if you're the song we're referring to is one where he writes about missing his writing partner.
I miss my friend, he says,
and probably quite easy for him to do.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very moving song, and it's a fitting tribute to Fred Ebb. I mean, they staged the first full production on Broadway of Curtains in I think 2007, and Ebb had died in 2004. So when Kander was contributing the extra material, it was quite close to when Ebb had died.
Which lyricist do you wish was still around to kind of carry on, or composers? Like what?
Fred Ebb, actually.
Yeah. Who do you think had one more
I wish that Fred Ebb had lived another 20 years, let's say.
To read your book?
I don't know about reading my book because he was quite acerbic, but I think... He still had a lot to contribute. He was still writing sharp, witty, dark, and funny material.
I think for me, it's certainly up there with Howard Ashman and things. They're the kind of the two that I wish were kind of. I know Howard died very, very young, and Fred, dare I say, didn't. But he wasn't. I mean, he can't have been that old, can he? If it was 20 years ago.
No, he may have been almost 80.
Yeah, but So and the book's called The Theatre of Kander and Ebb.
Yes, and it's published by Bloomsbury.
And we'll be doing the audiobook on Musical Talk.
So do go and buy it.
Let's talk about... Also, I want to ask you, we're still on Kander and Ebb, briefly about their production of Cabaret, because let's bring it right forward to now, playing at the Kit Kat Club, as they call it, also known as the Playhouse Theatre, and also on Broadway. Why do you think that didn't do as well as they probably thought it would have done on Broadway compared to here?
I think it was overrated in London by the critics. I think the New York critics were fairer. I think it seemed to me that the show was very much manufactured as a vehicle for Eddie Redmayne. I think that Eddie Redmayne, in his own way, is a very good musical theatre performer. He has a lovely sort of choir boy style voice. But I think they turned the Master of Ceremonies into a sort of virtuoso role, which it isn't really. It's a supporting role. And they made it, from the start, aggressive, snarling, patronising
He's
to the
meant to
audience.
transform, isn't he? He's meant to be kind of charming at the beginning and then gets more and more
Yes, exactly. But what he did was transform every time he had a costume change, which was almost every scene. At one point, he's dressed almost like the devil with a tail. And I couldn't understand what the interpretation was. I don't think there was a coherent interpretation. I think it was just because it was different. But in another sense, and this is what the Broadway critics picked up, it wasn't that original because it's billed itself as an immersive production, which it was. But actually, Sam Mendes had done an immersive production of Cabaret in 1993 at the Donmar Warehouse.
Did you get a free schnapps when you walked in, though?
You didn't get a free schnapps. But what you saw was an immersive production. What then happened was it was improved and re-choreographed by Rob Ashford for the Broadway production, which was done at Studio 54, which was genuinely an immersive space, and done again with Alan Cumming in a totally immersive production. So I don't understand why people were touting this as something
for
new.
this production, and I don't know about Sam Mendes' production, it's the fact that the minute, as someone who knows about the immersive entertainment industry, the minute you enter the building, you are in the Kit Kat Club. So they've completely renovated the whole theatre to be different. They've got all the performers out in the lobby playing music, and they've got the characters interacting with you. You get a free drink, or in my case, a bottle of water. There's no lines between the performers and the audience. And I don't know what Sam Mendes did with his production, but I guess it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't immersive on that level. But on the other hand,
my school did a production in Cabaret where the guests sat in the theatre and ate. Does that mean it was an immersive production in 1998?
Yes, it would have been called so. I think the thing is, if you judge by the standards of avant-garde theatre, this is very old hat. If you're looking at the West End, okay, no one has ever walked under the bowels of the theatre to get to what's supposed to be a bar in Berlin. But on the other hand, nothing ever convinced you that it was a bar or a cabaret venue in Berlin. I felt all of it, from the giving you a glass of schnapps onwards, was completely fake, because there's this guy standing at a little window, hands you, would you like a glass of schnapps or a bottle of water, and I thought, well, these are gimmicks.
Okay.
You don't, nothing made you really feel you were in a low dive like the Kit Kat Club. And in fact, to charge £325, it was at that point the most expensive show ever in London. To sit in the front few rows and be served a champagne dinner, well...
That wouldn't have happened in...
No, that certainly wasn't part of the Kit Kat Club atmosphere. Also, they had a sort of, in between, during the interval, a show with the characters who'd been in the pre-show twerking and twirling around the auditorium. And I thought, well, what does this do? Because it sort of disrupted the flow of the show, and it, in some ways, as you suggest, it took you out of the fact that you are invited by the Master of Ceremonies at the beginning, by the MC, you are invited in to enjoy a pleasurable, sexy cabaret. When you start enjoying the pleasurable, sexy cabaret, you gradually realise maybe there are things you shouldn't be watching. And that shows you, then you start seeing the odd Nazi appear, and you start thinking, maybe I shouldn't be watching this as an entertainment, which is how all Kander and Ebb shows work, really. Maybe I shouldn't be watching this as an entertainment, but it's bloody enjoyable. Yeah. And I think that's the trick. And I think to start by actually signalling to the audience, by having the MC snarling at them from the beginning,
defeats the purpose.
Is superfluous. Yes.
Has Cabaret ever been performed by Cabaret, I mean the musical, not just the art form, in Berlin or Germany?
Yes, very, very often. It's one of the two most popular American musicals in Germany, the other one being Fiddler on the Roof. For the same reasons. The one because it's about the Nazis, yeah, and the other because it's about Jews. The Producers was not successful. It ran for a while in Berlin, but it doesn't have the same purchase in the rest of Germany.
And of course, the German mentality has changed. But how long did it take for Cabaret to be performed in Germany? And do they do it in German or do they do it in English?
They do it in German.
But it sounds wonderful with the music. It must sound so authentic.
Yes, it does. I've seen it in German once, and I saw the entire original text, which is never done nowadays, the entire 1966 text, including the song Meerskeit, which is usually cut out of modern productions. And it was very good indeed. I saw that in Dortmund. So, the Germans have been doing it since about 1969.
Okay. And how does it go down there?
Always very successful. There's a very famous production which started in Paris with Ute Lemper and then was toured around Germany. And that was a huge success. That was a revival production.
Well, good luck with the book. Thank you for chatting to us about it. Let's talk about... I want to ask you briefly, and you might not have seen it, I haven't, but your thoughts on the current Evita?
I haven't seen the current Evita. I am going.
Do you think the big thing at the moment is, and I want to defend this choice here, is that people, the kind of Jamie Lloyd moment of filming the moment and beaming it into the audience, I think is more than a gimmick for this production, because my understanding of it is the whole point of Don't Cry For Me Argentina is she is performing it for, I hate to use the term here, but the less elite and the poor people. So the people who have paid to see the show don't get to see the biggest moment. They see on screen people who are watching it for free. Am I reading too much into that, or is there something quite clever going on here?
No, I think you're right. I think it's clever. I'm not sure that I have yet to see it, so when I see it, I'll make my mind up. But I'm not sure quite what the point is beyond that, because it seems to me one of the things about any great performance, and that's a highlight of Evita, is...
Or the highlight.
Like with the Kander and Ebb show, where the actors are performing for you. So in Cabaret, we become the Cabaret audience. Now, if we are to become the public watching Evita on the balcony, talking to us, we shouldn't be seeing it on a screen.
But the thing is, anyone can become the public.
Can they?
Yeah, thousands and thousands of people descend upon the Palladium balcony every night to witness this moment, and they are the ones being filmed. And
But what about the audience in the theatre who's watched the whole show?
Yeah.
You're watching it from a distance.
Yeah. You don't get to see that moment because the rich didn't in the story.
I'm not sure it's so much a question of rich and poor, because I think... I think that's part of the gimmick. I think that's the way they would justify it. They wanted, I think, a very public moment. They wanted, Jamie Lloyd wanted, I suspect, wanted something that's going to draw the general public's attention to the production, and it certainly has. So it seems to me like it's a wonderful gimmick, but it's not integral to that production.
This production came before Sunset Boulevard, didn't it? Because this was done at the open air.
Yes, but they
Park.
didn't have an outdoor.
So he's kind of
balcony.
worked out what works. I hope Jamie Lloyd never does this again, by the way, because I think a lot of his shtick of black and white, no coloured lighting, no set, filming bits and beaming into the audience it's
becoming repetitive.
A bit repetitive now. So I hope he kind of breaks away from that and says, I've done that. This is very good. I'm going to do a 1920s musical comedy now, and I'm going to revive The Boyfriend or something. But I don't see that happening. But speaking of musical comedies, we've both been to see Hercules. Hannah and I went on the very first performance, not opening night, but the very first performance, and it was very enjoyable. You went a couple of weeks later once it had been frozen, I think. we're both Disney fans, and your partner Olaf is a massive Disney expert. His thoughts, your thoughts, the general thoughts of the show.
I think Olaf was disappointed. I felt that I love the score. It's Alan Menken at his best, and Alan, who's better?
But it's also such a clever concept to take a story about praising gods, the gods, and making it be a gospel musical, taking what he did in Little Shop of Horrors with the Greek chorus and playing on that idea with the
I'm
muses.
not sure I think that's as original as you do.
No.
But because the Greek gods, again, one has to say that this is an animated version or a cartoon version of the Greek gods. So there's nothing serious about the Greek gods. I think
That's
the
as Greek as I
exciting
am, isn't it?
part of the score is the songs for the muses.
Yeah.
And I think the sort of gospel singing that the muses do is brilliant. And, it's Alan Menken at his best. David Zippel isn't a bad lyricist.
No, not at all.
I thought the weak point was the book by Robert Horn, which I think is just a series of gags. I think it's like Shucked, which is a series of self-conscious gags. I cannot understand what Kwame Kwei-Armah, as a serious playwright, did. He's also co-credited with writing the book. I simply don't.
And he's British, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I simply don't get it, because I think that's done for a strange kind of political correctness to have a black writer in there among them. Well, if you were going to do that, why didn't he rewrite the entire book? But instead Robert Horn's there for the gags, which are very obvious. I thought it was...
But funny. There's some great lines in there, I will say.
Yeah, but it depends on your sense of humour.
I think it did suffer, as do all Disney shows when they come over here, especially with the character of Hades. It comes across as quite pantomime.
Yes, I think you're right. I think the show does feel like a pantomime, but it's not as relentlessly arch and relentlessly tongue-in-cheek as pantomime. It's tongue-in-cheek occasionally, but sometimes we're meant to take it seriously, and I'm not sure
You're
when
raising
we
your
are.
inflection at the end of every sentence, like you're Australian.
I'm not sure. Well, I think because I'm becoming sarcastic.
Yeah.
I thought, for example, Luke Brady was very good as Hercules, very well muscled, and But on the other hand, almost every man in the cast looks like they could be Hercules. So nothing distinguishes the Hercules from the other muscle men. I thought that the women who played Talia and Cleo, Candace Spurbert, who plays Talia, and Charlene Hector, who plays Cleo, were both very good. And the muses were good, wonderful voices, but there isn't much individuality in the characters. And I think you yourself had pointed out to me when you saw it first, the many-headed...
The Hydra.
The Hydra, yeah. It's not.
You wanted more, didn't you?
You wanted more. It's not terribly original as a way of staging that character, that scene, that creature.
Hannah wanted, because in the film there's a big battle against the elements. So you got the earth battle, the wind battle, and the fire battle. We didn't get any of that. There was just kind of people with heads on sticks just kind of rolling around. And also, Hades wasn't blue, which was a shame, because that's, icon. And he's blue in the opening animation that they did. So why not carry that on?
Yes. So that was something from the film that wasn't carried through properly.
And you wanted a lot more from the battles with the monsters. I quite liked some of the puppetry they did do with the Cyclops and things. That was quite fun. But I wanted to kind of... They chose this theatre because of the size of it, and I know that for the puppets. So I wanted a 35-foot Hydra with 8 heads to kind of breathe fire over the audience. Maybe that's my theme park, because I've seen it. Disney can do it. So what also... biggest Alan Menken fan on the planet, and this is nothing against him, but did every song have to have changes?
Yes,
because I think you get comfortable when I won't say I'm in love comes on, or Go the Distance comes on, and you think, oh, I can finally just listen to a song. It's like, nope, we're going to take you down this different path with these different lyrics here. And David Zippel is a wonderful, wonderful lyricist. So I'm glad that he was involved. Not that you could hear very many of the lyrics, because it's such a loud show. You know, Jonathan Cohen on this show once famously said about Wicked, the film, it was so loud I couldn't hear it. But there's a lot in that saying, because when sound is just being thrown at you, you can't really comprehend what's going on, especially the speed at some of the lyrics come, especially when they're new as well. So I look forward to the cast recording hopefully coming out so I can actually listen to the songs properly. I thought the use of projections and screens was very, very effective at times. The Pillars deserve their own Olivier Award nomination. They were in some ways the most interesting thing in the scenes at some point.
On the other hand, they are old hat. I mean, we have seen that before in other shows. So I think there was nothing original in the design. I mean, if you compare this with Disney's The Lion King, there's nothing visually to compare with Julie Taymor's design.
I think even take that even further and say, Hannah and I are going to talk about this in another episode. Was it worth closing Frozen for?
Well, I won't.
Because I think Frozen is a lot more
Frozen is
beautiful in its staging.
Frozen is tasteful. It's sophisticated. It's as witty as a Disney show can be, in a sense. One of the things that irritated me was the way this show has been directed and choreographed by Casey Nicholaw. The choreography is...
And he's touted as being the most amazing... I mean, I like his choreography for Book of Mormon. I think it's the only choreography that's ever made me laugh.
Yes, but I think that's all he can do.
Yeah. But then you see Aladdin and it's the same. You see Hercules and it's the same.
Absolutely. And I thought we saw old-fashioned Broadway dance steps recycled and recycled and recycled. And I wanted something different. I wanted real choreography by a real choreographer. So, okay, Susan Stroman could have done it.
Rob Ashford
could have done it. They would have done a more sophisticated job.
Gillian Lynn's Ghost could have done a better job, you think?
I don't know about that.
But also, I think it's too American for British audiences. Why have this American marching band thing at the end of Act 1? Because Zero to Hero in the film is full of the most amazingly funny visual gags, like with American Express and the Disney Store being parodied and all this kind of wonderful visual material. It's like they just threw that away and said, we're just going to do an American marching band.
Yes. Well, I think that's the fault of the director. I mean, it seems to me that it was directed as simply an old-fashioned musical comedy. And when, I think Casey Nicholaw directed Some Like It Hot, when he does something like that, he's on safe ground. He knows what to do. He knows how to create a show like that as a director. When he does something that requires a kind of, not even originality so much, but coming from left field, you don't get that. You just get old-fashioned Broadway and old-fashioned Disney. And you don't get the best of Disney because, as you say, the films are usually more inventive.
Which is interesting because sometimes the stage shows like Lion King, for example, I'm not a huge fan of The Lion King. You are. I think Beauty and the Beast was a lot more exciting to watch on stage. Bit long. Did it surprise you how short Hercules felt?
I was relieved.
Act 2 is 37 minutes.
To be honest, I was relieved.
We'll leave it at there, Robert. But thank you for sharing your thoughts on Hercules and Kander and Ebb, and good luck with the book.
I want to say one thing.
Please do.
One thing more about a show that I saw twice. The first time at the Southwark Playhouse, the second time at the Ambassadors in the West End. The first time I'd enjoyed it. The second time, I thought it was brilliant. Not only the cast, but it somehow had been tightened. And I thought, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. It's sad that it's closed so soon, but it was...
I don't think you've seen the last of it, though. I think it's won so many awards. And
yes,
things.
I think it's going to tour, and I think it's going to pop up all over the place. But I think John Dalgleish and Claire Foster were absolutely brilliant, as indeed was the whole cast. And I think the whole storytelling idea that you can do a storytelling technique for a musical where the cast stand around and tell the story through song worked perfectly in this show. It doesn't always work. It's quite difficult. Sometimes it just seems to talk.
Do you mean it's through composed, or
no?
When you say they tell a story through song, sure, that's the point of every musical. So
no, but it's like we're sitting around in a circle and somebody stands up and sings. I'm going to tell you a story, and they sing it.
That's its folk background.
It's
isn't
folk,
it? Yeah.
exactly. And that was what was brilliant about it. That's what worked in a surprising way. There is dialogue.
It's the story about someone who's born old and gets younger and then shrivels into...
Yes.
That's all I remember about because I saw the film.
It's not a very distinguished film, but this version, it's the best version I've ever seen.
Lovely. Well, hopefully it can come back and not shrivel into existence.
If it's revived somewhere near you, go and see it.
Thank you, Robert, for joining us on Musical Talk, and have you on again soon. Is there anything coming up that you're looking forward to seeing? I booked for Paddington, which I'm seeing in December.
I've booked for Paddington. I can't wait.
Anything else? Burlesque, perhaps? Are you curious about that?
I'm not curious about burlesque.
You should be, because I hear it's interesting. Thank you, Robert, for talking to us, and we shall see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Musical Talk. To find out more about the world of Musical Talk, you can visit our website at musicaltalk.co.uk, where you'll find all our episodes, or you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Musical Talk.